This video is going to go over how to solve equations or systems of equations using substitution. So the substitution method is where we plug one equation into another to find a variable. Then we use that variable to find our other. Okay, so the steps to solve using substitution. Step 1 is to solve one of the equations for either x or y. Step 2 is to substitute or replace the expression into the other equation and solve for the variable. Then we substitute that answer into the revised equation from the first step to solve for the other variable. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Excuse me. So the first one, they're both solved for y. Now, since they're both solved for y, that means y is equal to y. So these two equations are equal. So we can set it up as 4x minus 1 equals 2x minus 5. And now we solve this to find our x. So remember, move your variable to the left, so minus 2x on both sides. 4x minus 2x is 2x. Bring down the minus 1, and it equals negative 5. Then we're going to move the 1, so I add 1 to both sides, and I get 2x equals negative 4. To finish solving, divide by 2, so x equals negative 2. Okay, well now I know what x equals. I'm going to take x and I'm going to substitute it into one of the other equations to figure out y. I'm going to use the top one. So y equals 4. We replace x with what it equals. And now we need to evaluate this. So y equals, well, 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. And then minus 1. So y equals negative 9. Now my solution here, I would write as an ordered pair of negative 2, negative 9. Okay, number 2. Number 2 is a little different than this one because they're not both solved for y. But I can see that this first equation is solved for y. So in the second equation, I'm going to replace that y with a 6x. I'm going to substitute it in. So I get 2x plus 3, parenthesis. We're going to plug in what y equals. So 6x equals negative 20. So we're going to simplify this first. 2x doesn't change, but 3 times 6x is 18x, and it equals negative 20. I can simplify this further to 20x equals negative 20. And then I divide by 20 on both sides. And I find that x equals negative 1. Now that I know what x equals, I want to substitute this back in for what y equaled. So y equals 6 times, and I'm going to plug in my x value. So we need to evaluate and simplify. Y equals 6 times negative 1, so negative 6. So my solution here is -1, -6. Number 3, same idea. This is solved for y. So I'm going to plug in for y. So I get 3x plus my 8 comes down, I open parentheses, and I plug in what y equals. So x plus 9. And it equals -5. So now I need to solve this. So I'm going to distribute my 8. 3x comes down, nothing's changing. 8 times x is 8x. And 8 times 9 is 72. And it equals -5. Okay, well now I can combine like terms. 3x and 8x is 11x. Plus 72 equals -5. So now we need to get x by itself to solve for x. So I move the 72 over. That will cancel. And I'm going to have to come up here so I have room. So it leaves me with 11x equals -5 minus 72 is -77. I divide by 11, and I get x is -7. Now that I know what x equals, I can find y. So I go back to that y equals equation. I'm going to plug in my x value of -7 and add 9. Well, -7 plus 9 means y equals 2. So then my solution to this system is -7, 2. Okay, next problem, number 4. Number 4 changes it up just a little bit because now that equation is solved for x. So instead of plugging in for y, since this says x equals, I'm going to plug in for x. So 2 parentheses, we're going to plug in what x equals, 4y plus 7 minus 6y equals 12. The only part of that equation that you change when you substitute is whatever the variable equals. So now we need to distribute. 2 times 4y is 8y. 2 times 7 is 14. Bring everything else down. Now I can combine like terms. 8y minus 6y, that's 2y, plus 14 equals 12. And now it's just like solving for x, but instead I'm solving for y. So I move my 14. And again, I'm going to go up to the top. So I have 2y equals, 12 minus 14 is -2. So now we divide by 2, divide by 2, and y equals -1. Okay, well now that I know what y equals, I can go back and find what x equals. So we plug in into that x equals equation, and I have 4 times -1 plus 7. So x equals, well, 4 times -1 is -4 plus 7. And we know -4 plus 7 gives me 3. Now that I know what x and y is, I know my solution is 3, -1. Be careful when you write your solutions because you always write your solutions with x first. So even though I found y first, I still have to put my x first. Okay, let's look at the back. Now on the back, all of a sudden my equations change, and most of them do not have one where it's solved for a variable. So when I don't have an equation solved for a variable, my first step is to pick one of the equations to solve for that variable. So how do I pick? Well, looking at these, I'm going to look at my variables, and I can see there's a 2x, a y, a 5x, and a 3y. So for me, I can see that this y is already by itself. There's no coefficient in front of it, which means my coefficient is 1. So it would be easy to solve this one for y. So I'm going to bring it over. And I'm going to solve this equation for y. So I move 2x to get y by itself. Y equals, and that's negative 2x minus 2. So now that I have y equals, it's solved for a variable, I can plug in for that y. So now it's the same steps that I was doing before. I plug in for my y, negative 2x minus 2 equals negative 8. Distribute your 3. So this is negative 6x minus 6. Bring down your 5x, and your equals negative 8. So we simplify. 5x minus 6x is a negative 1x minus 6 equals negative 8. So my next step, I'm going to rewrite this up here, would be to add 6 and add 6. So I have negative 1x equals, that becomes negative 2. To finish solving, we divide by negative 1, so x equals 2. Now that I know what x is, I need to go find y. So I'm going to take this equation that I found for y equals, and I'm going to plug this x into it. So y equals negative 2 times 2, we plugged in our x, minus 2. So negative 2 times 2 gives me a negative 4 minus 2. Negative 4 minus 2 is negative 6. Now I know what x and y are, so I can write my equation as 2, or sorry, my solution as 2, negative 6. Number 6, I would do the same way that I did this one. Again, we look at our variables. There's a 2x, a negative 3y, a 2x, and a y. So I would solve the second one for y because y is by itself. Now I'm going to skip down to 7, and we're going to look at 7. So we have x, 5y, 3x, and 15y. So I would solve the first one. So I'm going to come over to the side again, and I'm going to solve this equation for a variable. Well, the variable I'm going to solve for this time is x, because x is by itself. There's no coefficient with it, which means I'm going to move my 5y. So minus 5y and minus 5y. Yes, it's okay to solve for x instead of y. So x equals, this becomes negative 5y plus 4. So now I'm going to go to that second equation and plug in for x because I have x equals. So 3 parenthesis negative 5y plus 4 plus 15y equals negative 1. So 3 times negative 5y is negative 15y. 3 times 4 gives me 12 plus 15y equals negative 1. Now from here, I'm going to combine my y's. Well, a negative 15y and a positive 15y cancel each other out. So that leaves me with 12 equals negative 1. But we know that 12 does not equal negative 1. So when we get to this point, if we get something like this, where it's not a true statement, my solution is no solution. I hope this helps you work through solving systems by substitution. If you have any questions, please let me know. You do have an assignment to complete with this.